All right, so we are here in CPAC, and we have the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Kevin Freeman, who is an expert on economic warfare, financial terrorism, as well as the host of the Economic War Room. Mr. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here.
Roman, it's great to see you.
Can you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, Kevin Freeman, and like you said, I host a weekly television show. It's on Blaze TV, also on Liftable, XOTV, Rumble, and so forth. But we help people weaponize their money. We help people, the Bible tells us if we can't be faithful with our unrighteous mammon, money, you'll never be trusted with true riches. So we help people weaponize their spending, their giving, and their investing to support their values, to protect the Constitution, and to pass on our freedoms to the next generation.
Wow. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is that some of the viewers at home, when they think of war, they think of missiles, ships, planes. A lot of people don't think of the financial aspects of war. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, economics has been a part of war since the Peloponnesian Wars. I mean, you go back to Athens and Sparta and all of that. In fact, in World War II, we had a Bureau of Economic Warfare that FDR set up. But when the wall fell in Germany, under the Clinton administration primarily, they decided they wanted to separate economics and national security, and they did that. So we no longer think in terms of economic war, but economics are at the heart of every war, every conflict of man. They say it's all about the money. It really is ultimately all about the money.
Wow. Can you give us an idea of who the biggest threat financially for America is today?
Well, there's no question it's China. China's been in an economic war with us since, since 1999, when the book Unrestricted Warfare was first published. They have ramped it up in large part recently. Xi Jinping has been very profound at his economic war, but it's including intellectual property theft, which is a type of economic war. It's stealing trade secrets. It's trade, unfair trade practices. It's listing companies on our stock exchange that don't conform to our accounting standards. All of these are forms of economic warfare.
Yeah. Speaking of that book, Unrestricted Warfare, I every time someone brings it up, I just wish more Americans knew about it, because even the fentanyl that's flowing into our country, I heard an argument that was made that in that book they talk about chemical warfare, which that would fit right into it, right? So I mean, people just really do not understand what the Chinese Communist Party is up to.
Yeah.
It seems. So one thing that they're doing is they're creating a digital yuan, right? A digital form of their currency.
Correct.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's a very dangerous thing. I mean, the first paper money was the yuan, and it was created in China, and that first paper money had no backing, no gold, silver, anything behind it, and it failed miserably and caused hyperinflation. And right now they're talking about building a digital version of it, and what's scary about this is the control that it would allow. If they create a digital yuan and we start using it around the world, even in their own country, it's going to remove any semblance of privacy. They'll know exactly who's spending what, when, and where. And they'll be able to program it, turn it off. For example, if you get a certain amount of money, they can tell you can use it only in this location but not in another location. They can tell you you can't use it, but you can give it to someone who can use it. They can tell you you can only use it for the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They can tell you that your social credit score is too low. If you get your social credit score up, then you'll be able to use their money. It is complete control, and it is the most dangerous thing that's been suggested ever economically. It is from a biblical standpoint, it's the mark of the beast type stuff where you can't buy or sell unless you conform to their standards.
Wow. Well, it seems like that is sort of already in line with what the Chinese Communist Party is doing. I mean, the social credit score is a great example. They've already got this tight-knit, control over the society. I mean, it's a communist society after all. However, the U.S. digital dollar, right? There's also talk about a crypto form of the U.S. digital dollar being pushed. I forgot whether it was by the Fed or the Treasury. Can you talk a bit about that? Is it possible that that could happen without the form of control that the digital yuan would have?
Well, first off, it is going to happen. It's almost inevitable. It was in a COVID relief package that the Treasury and the Fed were teaming up to create a digital dollar. So everybody's going to get $2,000, let's say. They're going to give it to everybody as COVID relief. Well, you'll take it because you want that. But the level of control that it would provide at some point, and you say, well, our government would never do it. Well, they might. Well, remember when the income tax was first put in, it was going to be a 1% tax on the top 1% earners. Well, look at it now. It's on everybody, and it's far more than 1%. So it would open the door for really disastrous control. You know, when they talk about COVID passports, they're talking about knocking on your door to see if you had the vaccine. What if they say, well, you've not been vaccinated, so you're not allowed to have this money or spend this money? I mean, it creates opportunity. We have a solution for it, by the way, here in Texas. I'm a Texan, and we're working on a solution that would stop that. But the reality of it is a digital dollar is inevitable. And unless we put safeguards in, it will lead to totalitarianism.
Wow. What do you think is the reason people are willing to accept it? Is it just ignorance? Is it because I feel like more and more people, they use their credit cards, they don't see cash necessarily as much as they used to, and like you said, they feel like it's just inevitable that would happen. Is it just the case that they don't see down the line, or they think it might be just a conspiracy theory that the U.S. government would ever?
Well, of course
do such
it's a conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
because it's a theory about a conspiracy, which is people wanting to have greater control. Of course it's, and there's no question we'll adopt it because it's convenient. We do things all the time for convenience, but there are consequences to those conveniences. And the reality of it is, if there is a digital dollar without safeguards, it will have those levels of control available. And you get a bad, nefarious government, and they're going to take advantage of it, and they're going to force everybody to do what they want. Remember, this country confiscated gold at one point. They said, you can't own gold. And so they literally went door to door and forced the confiscation of gold. If they can do that, if they can take your gold away, they can say you can only use this digital currency, and with that they can say, well, and Mayor Bloomberg tried in New York, you can't buy a 32-ounce soda. That's too much. What if they have access to your cholesterol scores, and they see that you're trying to eat at McDonald's, and they say, no, your currency won't work at McDonald's? It is an inevitable level of totalitarianism unless we put safeguards in. Just like when they put the Constitution together, they said there's going to be violations, so we better pass these 10 amendments. So we have freedom of speech, we have the freedom of religion, we have the ability, the right to bear arms, and all those things. They put them in because they were safeguards. And a digital currency requires that level of safeguard, and most people aren't thinking about it. That's our job, to wake people up.
So what's the answer to it? You said you have some kind of solution.
Yeah, in Texas, the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10 says that no state can issue currency except gold and silver coins. So we started a bullion depository here in Texas where you can deposit your gold and silver in Texas. What if we added the blockchain to that, and we created digital coins based on that gold and silver held in reserve? The only piece we need is the IRS to acknowledge that if Texas issues currency, it's not taxable as a capital gain or loss. The problem with buying gold now is twofold. One, if you wanted to pay for things in gold, you don't shave off 1/1000th of an ounce of gold to buy a cup of coffee. But a digital version of that, you could literally keep track of 1/1000th of an ounce of gold, and so that solves the first problem. The second problem is every time, whether you use Bitcoin or gold or anything else, every time you do a transaction other than US dollars, it's subject to capital gains or loss tax by the IRS. Well, if a state, a sovereign state like Texas or Oklahoma or Nevada or New Mexico or whatever sovereign state issues a currency according to the Constitution, I would argue that that is not eligible to be taxed. And if we can settle that issue, I'm telling you, this would change the world. Because would you rather give your money to China and a digital yuan that they claim may be backed by gold, and some of it we know has painted bars that look like gold, or would you give it to Texas where you know it truly is backed by gold, and you got the promise of Texans, we are going to guarantee your privacy. We're going to guarantee your anonymity. It will be against the law for us to look at that information. I think money from around the world will flood in, especially if they know there's no capital gain holding gold this way, which means inflation will no longer be a problem.